Hit record. It is. Zoom now lets us know loud and clear that it is in fact recording.
I know, isn't that weird? It just started like today.
That's funny. I don't know what's happening here. Why it just we're having just a slight issue. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. I'm just getting us going live on Facebook, and for some reason it is okay. We're going. Woo! All righty. So hopefully someone on my team will let me know in a second or two if we are live or not. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to share a screen super quickly with you all to show you our upcoming events that are happening. If I can find this image that I just loaded, where the heck did I put it? Where did I put it? Oh my goodness, it was right here. I have too many tabs open. Anyway, if I can't bring this up, it's okay. I'm just going to read out just so that people know what is happening. June 8th, up and coming. We have June 8th, we have our Develop Your Marketing and Launch Strategy workshop, paid workshop. We have on June 22nd, a website building opportunity with PubSite. If you are looking to figure out great new ways to set up your website and are looking, or not new ways, but a simpler way to set up your website, we're going to do a workshop where PubSite's going to help us. By the end of it, you will actually have your website set up. So that's going to be fantastic. Don't miss that if website is part of your the bane of your existence. On June 29th, we have another summit roundtable discussion. We're going to be talking about limiting mindsets with a great set of guest speakers on that. On July 12th, we'll have our paid training on Amazon ads for authors. That's going to be phenomenal. And on July 27th, we will have our webinar with Book Funnel. And you can see all of these events and register for events and check out what is coming at womeninpublishingsummit.com/events. So let me say hello to everyone now that I've given you that brief overview. Sorry that you didn't have a pretty slide to go with it, but just go to womeninpublishingsummit.com/events and you'll be able to see everything that is up and coming. We have a mixture of free and paid workshops every single month. And of course, starting off on June 7th, we kick off the Book Launch in a Box program. So thank you all so much for being here with us today. My name is Alexa Bigwarf. I'm the host of the Women in Publishing Summit and the CEO of Write, Publish, Sell. And through the Women in Publishing Summit, if you are new to us, we love to bring authors, publishers, book launching experts, the whole gamut of experts to you to give you insights into different pieces of the puzzle that you need as you are on this journey to write, publish, and sell your book. Today, I am really happy to bring you one of our summit sponsors, Deborah Herman. Deborah Herman has been a publishing industry insider for over 30 years. Let me move this over here so I'm looking at you guys. While in first year law school, she discovered a love for writing personality profiles of local comedians to remain sane. This guilty pleasure led to a dual degree in law with a master's degree in journalism. The goal was to be the next Joan Didion or Truman Capote. I hope I'm saying those right. Truman Capote. But the chance to write creative nonfiction did not come until 2017 with her best-selling collaboration with the youngest member of the Manson family cult. That sounds like an interesting book. Herman is also the author of 12 other traditionally published nonfiction books ranging from parenting to spiritual writing. As the industry changed with the internet's burgeoning, Deborah Herman sought to understand this new world. After 3 MBA level intensives through the Rutgers mini MBA program, Herman learned about digital marketing strategy, social media strategy, and entrepreneurship. From this was born her indie publishing company, Micro Publishing Media, Inc., to publish niche titles in various imprints. As a former agent and now a publisher with an understanding of the digital world, Herman discovered a gap in how authors could succeed. So author branding solutions became the next natural step. So today we're actually talking about book proposals, which has, but the cool thing about that, welcome, Deborah. Thank you so much for being here. The cool thing about that is just to show what a wide breadth and depth you bring to this discussion. And I think that's really important because as authors get into this, they'll quickly realize that book publishing and becoming a successful author requires like a really big a really big circle of knowledge, or people who know how to bring that circle to you. So thank you. World's
Oh,
longest introduction, but
I know. I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. But it's been that kind of journey, starting back when I was a newbie, right? My first step into writing was for free publications
Mhm.
because my brother was a comedian and I was asked to write profiles. And that was so much fun. I said, boy, people can get paid to do this. Fast forward all these years later, I've really been in every side of the publishing industry,
Yeah.
and discovered all the ins and outs. And then, of course, when I was able to do, I don't know, this is the book.
That's amazing.
I know when I was finally able to do this, and truly, I didn't know that I could. I had the background, but it was a real stretch for me. I learned what it was actually like to be a what they call front list, A
Mhm.
list book with a major publisher. It was, I mean, all my books are with traditional publishers, but this was, this was HarperCollins, and it was a lead title. And
Wow.
even with that, there's so much that you expect that's going to happen that isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I guess my message today, which I'll take through the slideshow, is that authors really need to understand the big picture and they need to be entrepreneurial. The art
Yes.
is one thing, but it'll only get you so far. I mean, we had lightning in a bottle. The day I handed in my book proposal, Charles Manson, the notorious cult leader who still, there's like 100 books about him and a million documentaries and major
Yeah.
movies. So, I mean, that's a big thing. The day I handed in the book proposal, he went into the hospital,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Talk about
I
news
could
to
not,
propel you forward.
I could not have planned it. And my co-author, a member of the family, the youngest member who had never told her story, was in town with me. So we immediately got meetings with the major publishers. That never happens. We got a contract almost immediately with a preempt offer, which means they offered so that no one else could offer. That never happens.
Wow.
And then of course, the part that nobody realizes is I had 90 days to write that book and had
Wow.
not written any of it yet.
Way to just go for it.
I mean, because it was the opportunity that was in my lap, and every single day, and I'm going to clean this up for you guys. Every single day when I would get into my office, knowing that this was like handed to me on a silver platter, I did a prayer. I'm also known for a book I'm reintroducing called Spiritual Writing from Inspiration to Publication. And I write about how you're called but you want to be published. And so every day I'd go into my office and I'd say a prayer. Only this prayer, and I'm cleaning it up, was, God, please don't let me mess this up.
Mhm.
And I did not say it that way. Okay, so I guess what I'll offer today, and I'm going to start the slides, is you really need to be armed with as much information as you can. And it's wonderful what you're doing, Alexa, is you're providing information so that authors of today can learn things that we didn't know.
Yeah.
Now, um, and I'll do this quickly. I mean, this is a book that people may be familiar with. Have you seen this book?
Yeah, actually I haven't, but that's your husband, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So
there you
this
go.
is,
That looks like a great resource.
well, it's in its 28th edition. This was pioneering because it gives you, and at the time my husband became a literary agent, Jeff Herman agency, he couldn't even find out who the editors were.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure.
so there was no way to get past the gatekeeper. So he started this back a long time ago. I'll just say a long time ago, because I'm already revealing my age, where he discovered who was doing what, so that an author with the right query letter and proposal, even if they couldn't get an agent, they could figure out which editor was doing the kind of work that they were doing, because editors and agents want good material. But there's so
Absolutely.
much competition that for every, let's just say that 99% of submissions will not make it. Now
90,
that,
did you say 99?
yes,
Wow. I knew it was
99.
high, but that's
Well,
so, well,
but
before
that's
you
actually,
continue then, like just the question that I'm sure everyone in here is asking is, why should I even bother submitting a proposal?
because if you do it right, and you immediately, there are so many reasons why they're immediately dismissed,
Okay, good
that,
to know.
okay, that
You
if
follow
this
the
is why I'm
follow
doing
it.
this, we
Mm-hmm.
are decoding how agents and publishers think. Because if we can find books that are saleable, even though there's a problem nowadays, and that's why you need to think of other options, um, you can fall into that high percentage, because we want to find good material, and people make the same mistakes over and over. So
Yeah.
we want to mistake proof you all. And it
All right.
is worth it if you can get even though I'm an indie publisher, and I also have a hybrid aspect, which is very viable and wonderful. My authors do very well. But if you can find a so-called traditional or indie publisher, there are advantages to it. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
And my husband still sells books.
Yeah.
So somebody is selling a book. You
Yeah.
have to know how.
Yeah, that validates a lot of things that we've heard from a lot of other people as we've talked to agents and things, just those key little things like following the submission guidelines, making sure you have a great catchy first chapter, all of those things. So, but the actual creation of the book proposal, I think, is super, super daunting to people. So I'm excited that you're going to break it down for us.
Yes, I am. And it's daunting only if you look at it as something you're going to get through, instead of something that's going to give you that, as if you were in the office with this agent and publisher, the opportunity to pitch yourself and tell them why should my book exist, and why it's a great thing, and why it's something you should support. That's really what it is. You are getting their time. And if you're getting to that point, it's all persuasion. So that's what we're going to talk about. And for those of you who may already know, the other book we've done, which is now in its third edition, the first book that Jeff and I did together is really Write the Perfect Book Proposal. We came up with a formula that stemmed from my wayward days as a lawyer, and my first couple of proposals were so bad that Jeff just kind of threw me in and said, "Hey, figure this out." And I, and I also had a mentor who taught me that sometimes the proposal should even be better than the book, because that's where you shine. So I'm going to share my screen now and go through some slides, and we can
Awesome.
and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I will say this, we'll get to this at the end. This presentation I'm doing today, we did in a 4-session class. Okay, so there are a lot of detail that I won't be able to cover, but what I'm offering for anyone on the webinar today is a huge discount if they want to go into more depth and actually watch the hour-long videos on each part of the book proposal. We went into a lot of depth, and it's worthwhile doing.
Do we have that link and information from you already? Otherwise, we can grab it from you and we'll make sure it goes out with the replay.
Yeah, and I have it at the end of the slides.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
And for anybody who just wants to immediately write it down, you can just go to my Deb's Book Paradise. I have my dream bookstore, but it's on the very first page, and you all are, you'll see at the end, you're getting a sizable discount because you'll already be prepared and know what you're looking at. So,
Awesome.
and plus we like you. So we're giving you a discount. Okay, so here we
right.
go. Let's, wait, let's move that. Let's go to this. There, are you seeing my presentation?
I do see it, and I'm going to mute myself so I'm not making noise in the background.
Okay, so how do I gotta think. Okay, so why a book proposal? A book proposal is really your introduction to an agent or an editor, publisher. Really, when you're talking about a publisher, you're talking about an acquisitions editor. And nowadays, we're looking at, it's different. I'll try to go through this really quick. Back in the beginning, there weren't as many conglomerates. And now the publishing houses, many of them, or actually all of them, are owned by very large media companies. Publishing is only a small part of that. And there are individual imprints, which are like small worlds inside these big companies. And the editors, the acquisitions editors, are really the first line toward selecting titles for each list. Book publishers, including my own publishing company arm, we have lists typically in spring and in the fall, and that's because that's when bookstores, which are still viable, including Amazon, that's when they have their buying budgets, and that's why it's done this way. Very few books are dropped in, which is when it's done off season, and only if it's very timely or time sensitive. So I hope you got that, because it's the structure of publishing is very interesting, and it's what creates the opportunities for you. So these editors have only a few books that they can select each season. So that's why so few are, make it over the goal line, because they're the big companies are really looking for the high-end front list books. What used to be the mid list were the bread and butter types of books, for especially nonfiction, is if you have a good topic, even if you didn't have such a big platform, but it was something that could last and become what's called backlist. That was important for these publishing houses, to have a strong backlist of books that can be what's called evergreen. They last a long time and everybody wants them, and they can be in print for years and years. So what you're trying to do with this document is you are trying to show your agent or editor what you're offering. You need to prove that an audience exists for your material. And I'm going to tell you how. And you also have to show that you can carry out the plan, which is proving your credibility as an author. Now, a lot of this sounds like it's only geared for nonfiction, but all of this applies also to fiction, and I can focus on that if there are any questions about it, because it's a little bit different how you present the package. So this is also showing what you're going to do to make your project a success. I've read so many query letters over the years, and the mistake that authors make is they think that, they've worked so hard, their material is so good that now the publisher is going to make them famous. And that's just backwards. It really is you showing them what you bring to the table. That's very important.
It's funny, Deborah, if I can just add on to that, because I was having a conversation with someone this morning and we were talking about different books that have come along that are very similar, but have had such gravely different experiences in terms of how well they're selling and all those kinds of things. And that's what I told her as well. I was like, it's the difference in what the author brings in, what they're willing to do, as opposed to people who just think, oh, my book is published and it's got a publisher, so it's just gonna do well.
No,
and that's not the truth.
Now I'll tell you something. We were the original. Do you ever hear something called Chicken Soup for the Soul?
Yes.
Okay, We were the original agents. I worked on that book proposal. We saw its potential.
Mhm.
Nobody wanted it.
It's
Finally,
amazing.
when it was picked up by a very small publisher, it was the authors made it happen.
Mhm.
They made it happen. They at that time there was no real internet opportunity, which is why all of our authors now and the people watching this webinar have such an advantage, and it's amazing. These guys literally went places. They had books in their car. They went to the mall. They did it, and they made that happen.
Yeah.
So it can happen, but you need to have passion for your project. Nobody's going to love it as much as you are. Maybe your mother or your father, but even then they'll get tired of it after a while. So you need, you know, oh, this is before digital submissions. That is me. And this is what our desks looked like. And that wasn't even all of it. We used to have in one of our offices, we had a huge walk-in closet that we called Ye Old Slush Pile. And it was filled to the brim with submissions. And that's what they look like. And now we are receiving the same amount, but they're digital, thank God. But when you think that you've sent us something and you're the only one, I don't want to break it to people, but this is it. And these are unsolicited. So that's not even counting when we've gotten a query letter and we've requested something, which invites you to the party. So all of the steps along the way are important for you in understanding the protocol so that we will read your work, and you have to give us a reason to read it. So but yes, that's me, a little bit younger. So what are the parts of a book proposal? I'm going to break this into 2 sections so that we can go into a little bit of depth. Of course, in the recorded sessions, the 4-part, we go into a lot more depth. But you're going to start with an overview. You're going to do your about the author. You're going to do comparative titles. You're going to do your market, which is not the same as marketing. It is who is your reader. And that's where a lot of people fail. They have no clue who their reader is. This is your, you're looking at your promotions, and now you start to get into the content portion. And both of these things need to be weighted. Every single part of a book proposal is as important as the rest. And that's where people get tired. They think, oh, I'm going to put all the energy into one section, but you don't know who's reading what. When there's an editorial meeting and you're at a publishing house, not just with an agent who's maybe he's got an assistant or she, they may be reading the whole thing. But if you're at an editorial board meeting, this thing is broken into pieces. One part goes to the editorial team, one part goes to the sales team, one part goes to marketing, one part goes to publicity. You don't know who's reading what. You need to put energy into each section. So the overview, we'll talk about how long it should be and what it should include. People go overboard with the overview. This is like writing a newspaper article. You got to start with the inverted pyramid: who, what, when, where, why. Then you'll get into the how. We want to know right away what the book is about, and you need to use good writing. But we don't want. I've gotten through whole proposals not really understanding what the book is. Well, that's not good. So you got to be very careful with choosing your words. And then about the author, this is what you should say about yourself. And you got to think about a brand. That's why I now have the company Author Branding Solutions. Who are you as an author? This is not necessarily who you are as a person, but who are you presenting to the world as an author? You want to think of yourself as an entrepreneur and as a business. Not just as an artist. And then when you're doing the comparative titles, how do you choose what's relevant? How do you present them so that they're positive for your book, not just negative for other people's books? And that's a very important distinction. So what's the importance of an overview? It's going to set the tone for the proposal. It needs to be short and to the point. People make the mistake of making it way too long. It shouldn't be any more than 250 to 500 words. And if you can learn how to write what's called a log line, that's to your advantage. I can't go into that now, but it's really, it's not just your elevator pitch, it's a little bit more, but it has to really explain, you know, what it is, how it happened, you know, and where your reader's going to end up. So that your potential editor and agent knows exactly what it is they're looking at. And you'll also want to highlight why the agent or publisher should want to read more. If there's something that you're bringing to the table that's really significant, you want to put that in the overview. So you're about the author. I don't mean to be offensive. I'm sorry. This was kind of a little joke.
That's hilarious.
Okay. If you're going to include a photograph, please make it a good one or just leave it out. And this has nothing to do with whether you're, you know, an attractive person or not, but I've seen people that are probably very lovely, but their photos are terrible. Just don't send one. And also, this isn't your curriculum vitae. It's really a story. You're telling your brand story, and you can optimize it, which we'll talk about a little bit later. You want it to be in third person and relevant to your book and why you're the one to write this book and recent accomplishments. You know, it's nice that you got awards in high school, but we want to elevate you from that and create your professional persona. So a lot of times you really do need to compare complementary and competitive titles. It's important and it needs to be in your proposal because if, for example, you are seeing tons of books, back in the day, there were all these books about angels. Well, if you're seeing all those books, you're behind because traditional publishing is always at least 18 months behind of a trend. So it's really important, or we've run up against situations where we're just not aware that this particular agent or publisher just did a book on that topic. And then you're wasting one of your submissions, and you're also looking like you haven't done your homework. Now, you don't want to trash other people's books. This is about really creating a picture that there is a market for your book. So what you want to do is find books that will show, well, this book was so popular, but I'm looking at it from a different point of view, and I'm adding this to the literature. That's a good way to approach it. And don't worry about really older titles or classics unless that's relevant to your book. For example, we are now doing a whole series of reprints on an author named Dr. Maxwell Maltz. He was very famous in the 60s. We have the rights to reprint. We sold the audio rights because people are searching, and still his books are selling. And it's sort of like Think and Grow Rich. Those are the classics. Those books are relevant. Otherwise, no older or classic books are relevant to your book proposal. And self-published titles are not relevant and they're not competitive. So don't worry about them if you are seeking a traditional publisher. They may be relevant in other situations for you to be aware if you're going into a hybrid publisher or something non-traditional, but that's not what we're discussing today. We can do that another day if Alexa invites me back. So these are really important to your proposal. Your markets, that's where you identify who's going to buy your book. saying that everyone needs this book, and I have heard that so many times. You have no idea how many query letters I've read in my tenure, starting as a very young woman. See all this gray hair? That's from how many times I've read people. No offense to anyone, please. I have read so many books, so many queries of people who are rewriting the Bible. So many people who have found the key to happiness and want everybody to know it, but they're just people, which is fine. I'm sure that they have a lot of things to say, but they have no concept of who an actual audience would be. This is also where, oh, and saying that your book, every woman should read this book. Maybe that's so, but you need to identify where they are, how you're going to reach them. So that's where your search engine optimization comes in. And that's a webinar in itself, but I'll give you some key points about that in a few slides. Promotion, this is not the same as markets. Once you've identified who your audience is, this is where you say what you're going to do to reach that audience. And these plans should be underway the second you start writing your book. And that's why, you know, Author Branding Solutions, we work with authors. We're still editing their books for them before they're even making their submissions. And we're building, even though you're doing a thing on websites, we build amazing websites with back and front end optimization so that we're getting you your audience already, so that by the time you're either submitting your book or you've sold your book and it's out there, you have your audience finding you. And that's important. Also, that's for online promotion and optimization. There's also the offline, which was the traditional way of building a platform. And there are many, many ways to still do that now. Thank God that COVID is becoming, at least we're seeing some end and some return to being able to have outside lectures or online. Your publisher is not going to create your career. So this is really important. And if you have anything that you're willing to do, this is where it goes. Then we're going to start getting into the content part. A lot of times people are basically interested in cutting corners. So they'll say, well, this is what I'm planning to do. No, this is what you're going to do. Because if you are submitted to a traditional publisher and an agent is taking you on, you're creating and I'll say this in the next slide, this is the structure that they are expecting. They are trying to see what your book is going to be. You don't have to have an entire book when you're submitting for nonfiction. You do pretty much if you're writing memoir, and of course with fiction, you want to have an entire manuscript. The reason is that there are too many situations where they love the book and the writer can't fulfill the promise. That's why when it's really imperative that the writing and that the story be what is the key, that you can carry it through. So the table of contents is really important. And of course, people hate doing them. Okay, so it's the backbone of your book and your proposal. Writers tend to dismiss this when they're writing the proposal, but this is where you create your structure, and it needs to be logical. And it's not just that it needs to be fancy, or some people just like to be a little bit too humorous, or they're trying to be impressive. Logic, structure, a blueprint and a roadmap is more important. And as I was saying, this is a promise that you're making to a prospective agent and publisher, and you must keep that promise because they're expecting. Now, of course, I just blew that whole thing because when I sold the Manson book on book proposal, they told me, oh, by the way, we're having you redo the entire thing because we want it written this way. That doesn't happen that much. typically they're looking at what you're presenting, and if that's what they're buying, that is what they expect. This is probably what you're thinking of when it comes to writing an outline, that somebody's going to stand over you, you're going to, your eyes glaze over, your brain becomes mush. But really the outline is your friend. If you, and when I consult with writers, and I coach so many writers now, especially those writing memoir, it's always the structure and the how you're building your story. That's where most of these manuscripts fall. And so we reconstruct them, and we go back and we think in terms of an outline, but outlines are not to take away your creative freedom. It's really to give you that freedom, because if you know where you're going, even if you adjust it later, you don't have the anxiety of being lost in the weeds. And that's really what it is when you don't have some kind of outline. And if you're trying to present this to an agent or editor, if you don't have a structure, you're taking them on a journey and you're leaving them in the woods. So that's why I'm really stressing this. And I actually use, I have workbooks that I use with my authors to help them with this understanding of the structure and the building of their book. So use index cards. And my daughter's a writer, of course. All my kids are artists, those poor things. I have 3, but my eldest is trying to get me to use, so what is that called? Scrivener. Now, of course, I think you guys are absolutely so blessed that you have these things. And I've caught on with a lot of the techie stuff, and I do websites, so she gives me a pass on not using Scrivener. But you have so many software options to help you. So what if you've written your book already? Now you don't want to throw your hands up and say, oh, I did it all wrong. You want to reconsider your structure and be open-minded. Maybe get, one of the things that we offer, and I'm sure other people do as well. We do assessments so that we are giving you the feedback of whether your table of contents is logical, whether your chapters are the best, your whole thing. I'm sure there are a lot of editors who do this kind of thing. Of course, not with as much experience as we have, but try not to be too pitchy. But anyway, be open-minded. Don't be frustrated. You are looking for a sale. So look at your proposal and don't rush it, because there aren't that many agents. And if you are sending out your queries or your proposals to agents, and then you suddenly decide, uh-oh, I should have done a better job, they're going to remember having seen it. I've got one guy who keeps sending me different versions of this book that I can't comprehend, about the universe and the evolution of Homo sapiens. And I remember every time I get a letter from him. We're not, until we really lose our cognition, we remember that we've read these things. So also don't try to do too much in your book. And you need to think, if the agent or editor has nothing more than the table of contents, would they know clearly what your book is about? So that's really what's important when you're getting ready and you think, oh, I'm taking this webinar, but I was so set. I have my list of agents I want to send to. Take that step back, because this is really an opportunity to make a great impression, and it's worth the time. So we can't really go through everything today in this short period of time, but the content portion of your proposal, I do something that not everybody does, but I like doing an annotated table of contents with really short descriptions of the chapters. That's a Deb thing. Not everybody does that. Then you go into your chapter by chapter outline, which is really an expansion to give your potential agent or editor a really full understanding of what the chapters are going to be. And it's an opportunity for you to show your writing. I really like including an anecdote or a takeaway. You know, yeah, you're going to probably end it with this chapter will include blah, blah, blah. But don't miss the opportunity. Think about all the people that are vying for this agent's time or this editor's time. Put a little bit of your best writing in those little annotations. And then you're going to be tired by this time. Put it aside, take a break, go on a vacation, come back, do sample material. Now, again, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite because I got away with selling the Manson proposal without sample material. However, each one of my annotations were almost full chapters. So they got, and plus I had written 12 other books. And so do as I say, not as I do, because I don't know. It was also because I was working with a member of the Manson family who had never told her story. So they almost didn't care who I was. But so don't do that. Your sample material, you should have one or two, at least 2 chapters, and make sure they're not dull. Really work on them. And as I said earlier, one of my mentors said, this sample material should almost be better than your book is ever going to be, because you are looking, and actually that's, your book will be great and you'll have an editor and it'll be wonderful, but really work hard on this and have someone look at it. So search engine optimization is the way we use it is not the same thing. We use it in several different ways. When we work with an author and we're doing their branding, or we're working on a manuscript, or we're working on a proposal with them, we have a method of author search engine optimization, keyword research. Doing this has changed the lives of several of our clients because we figure out exactly who that reader is. In the old days, you'd have to guess. You'd have to look at other similar books. You'd have to look at your own platform, and you'd have to, you'd have to avoid saying every woman should read this, but you'd have to use more of your own analysis. So now we can show with data who your reader is, where they hang out, how you can reach them. And it's not just the low-hanging fruit. If you're going to go and look at Google keywords and all of that, it's a different analysis, because you're going to see keywords that you would have no opportunity to rank for. People own those shelves. So you want to find out, by combining what it is that makes your book different with what people are looking for, because it's all transactional. If I'm going to go on Google and say, how do I get my horse to be ridden, or something like that. A how-to is I actually have a horse that I can't ride, but I've given into that, and he's now just a big dog. But that just popped into my head. Anything that is a question, how do I do so and so? That's something that Google is going to put in the search engines, and it's going to look for good answers. So it's a formula that we use to figure out what it is that you're offering in your book that you can be ranked for, and that you can show to your potential agent or publisher that these are terms that prove that I have an audience. And we've done this for several proposals, and it can help you if you are not yet having a clear platform or brand. It shows that it's on the way. And as we continue with our digital marketing strategies, our authors rank higher, and they're able to prove to an agent or editor, yes, I have an online presence. And it's not just, yeah, it's good if you're an influencer, or if you're, if you have Instagram. But what we're really looking for is to show that you have people who are engaged, who are looking for what it is that you have. And believe it or not, we've been successful doing this for novelists. We find what interests those readers have. We figure out where they hang out. We work out blog titles that are going to draw them to the websites. And it's really cool. And I think it's one of the best tools that authors have today to start, to start to prove that they should exist. Because the traditional publishers are not yet fully on board with the idea that people make their decisions online. And they may still, I know I'm very tactile. I love physical books. I love bookstores. I have an online bookstore, Deb's Book Paradise, which most of it, in all honesty, came from my own collection that I finally decided. I mean, I have been collecting books since time began. And, I also, we receive a lot of books as an agency. We've sold over 1,000 books as a literary agency, so that you get a lot of books. But they really are not fully on board yet with the benefits and with how to create online platforms. So during COVID, they started to rethink the whole cybersphere and how people are making purchases, and also how people are communicating and how content is being delivered. So the SEO is one part of your content strategy. Platform is still key. I know you hate that word. And if you don't hate that word, then you haven't been trying to sell your work to a traditional publisher. Because, and I don't know how I'm doing with time. Alexa, am I doing okay?
We are at about 1:47, which means we have about 13 minutes left. How many slides do you have left here?
I'm at the end, really.
Okay, perfect. Then we're great.
Okay, I just wanted to say, and I'm sure we can provide this as a PDF for you, that your platform is still very important. And it's also because of the traditional conglomerates and a higher threshold for what's going to get their attention. And you need your platform and your SEO to find your market, know how to reach them, and how to continue reaching them. And that's what's going to get the attention. What agents and editors want, because remember, we're decoding book proposals. The way to contact an agent and an editor is with a query letter, which is like a mini proposal. And just quickly, a query letter includes, basic description of what it is you're offering and what you bring to the table. That's it, simple. Don't go into major description, and make sure that we know what you're selling by the end of that letter. And always put your contact info, including a phone number, because if you're old school like me, I may just pick up the phone. And I like to do it that way. So what editors and agents want? Books that will sell. Whether it's a novel, whether it's nonfiction, use your proposal to prove your content has a market. And then when it comes to proposals, be an advocate first and an artist second. And I can't stress that enough. And if you need help, there are many, many people that Alexa can connect with you. And she's a wonderful educator, and the summits are awesome. And then you can always reach out to me. I've been at this for 30 years, and I've written and had 12 books published. I've edited innumerable books for people, and now we do websites, we do back and front end digital marketing, we get you ranked, and you can do this. Readers read, writers write. You have to find a way to match together and to get noticed. And I should have shut off my phone. On that note, here's our contact info. you can have $100 discount on the extensive deep dive 4-session book proposal course. It's with Jeff Herman. He was part of it, and also an SEO expert. And all you need to do is go to Deb's Book Paradise. It's on the front page, and then you get $100 discount. Use Pub Summit in all caps, and it'll automatically do that for you. So I am open to all your questions and anything. Oh,
I've
I'll
got
stop my
some for
my
you.
screen share. There.
I've got a couple of questions. I would like to, I know Marilyn didn't put her question in the Q&A box, but I want to ask this because I had the same question. What do you mean by saying being an advocate for yourself rather than an artist?
You are an artist, and the writing process, if you love it and you do it, you're an artist. When it comes to, I want to find a way to sell my book part, and I'm submitting to agents and editors, you have to put on an entrepreneur hat, and your book proposal and your query needs to be done in proper protocol. You need to educate yourself, and you need to use a persuasive book proposal that's going to answer what I've been presenting to you are the questions that are in the heads of the agents and the editors. Why should I invest in you? And you're going to be answering all those questions with those different parts of the proposal. And that's how you decode it.
Awesome. All right. So Tony says, some of the agents in my network say they are reading the author's bio and marketing and promotion section before even reading the overview. If the author doesn't have a big enough platform or outreach, they don't want the risk of taking on a project, even if the concept is strong and marketable. How widespread do you think this practice is right now? And then she has a follow-up question, but we'll just ask that one first.
It's depends on the agent. I think it's super widespread, which is why I've gone into the, I'm an old softie. I want people to succeed. And because I know how to build online platforms, that's why I opened up, like I really needed more to do. But I opened up Author Branding Solutions because you need to level the playing field, and you need to be able to tell them, I have a platform, and you can prove it through data. If you understand specifically who your audience is and you can show that you're reaching them, I think you can overcome. They're looking at, they want the low-hanging fruit. They want the easy sale. You're not going to find that with all agents, and you just need one.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also start by being published. I wouldn't necessarily self-publish, but a lot of my authors choose to come to me first. I'm a hybrid publisher, but I have bookstore distribution. But you may need a little bit of a budget and an investment, but it gets you started, and then you prove your market. And then you show that you're viable, but if you're going in some of the self-publishing ways where you don't have a team behind you, and there are many great people to help you other than me, then you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot in some ways, because you're gonna show that it went nowhere, and it may not be professional. So whatever you do, if you want to try to start by proving your market, by publishing before you try for a traditional larger publisher, make sure you get professional input.
I keep telling Tony to stick with it and go for the agent, because she's got one of those sensational stories. She's already been covered by the news all over the place. She broke somebody out of prison and they went on a wild chase. I mean, it's already being optioned for movie rights. I'm like, you hold firm. There is an agent out there and a publisher.
I mean, I would have to look at her proposal, because there's something they're missing.
Yeah.
And they're not seeing that.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, it's all in the presentation, because they may be seeing, oh, well, she's already, oversaturated with the exposure. That means there isn't going to be any publicity, or they're not understanding why the story's so cool. They're also not, if you have it optioned, that should be a slam dunk. If
Yeah.
it's a promise and there's no viability behind, the production company, and my book is in the process. It's got and it's not option, but it's with it's under contract for submission. So we understand all about that process. There's something they're not getting.
Do you do
So,
proposal reviews, Deborah?
oh yeah,
Okay, so
absolutely.
Tony, send your proposal to Deborah and let her have a look
I
at
mean,
it.
there's a small fee,
Of
but
course,
it's very,
yes, yes,
but it's
yes. If you-
certainly, believe me, we are not, for what we do in our experience, it's a bargain.
Yeah, no.
But-
I would expect that you would charge for that. I would not expect you to be doing that for free.
Well, but see, I'm a softie, and if I, if I was like,
hold your ground, hold your ground.
I will. See, you got to help me too. But I will absolutely, because it's all in the analysis of it, and that's what I've been doing for as many 30 years. But they're missing something, so we
Yeah.
can fix that.
Yeah,
And all of
awesome.
you, don't give up.
Don't give up.
This is a new world, and you can build a platform in ways that were never possible in the past.
That's right.
And and then, I mean, of course they're going to want somebody who's has their own talk show. That's the easy thing. But there are great books that are waiting to be out there.
This has absolutely nothing to do with the topic of your webinar, but on that note about, I just want to say something that just happened to us this week, because it's exactly what you're talking about, not giving up, but also looking for opportunities. And when you get yourself out there to talk about things and do things, how other opportunities can land in your lap. So we sent out an email this week about a children's book, Princess Monroe, and we talked about how it looks so much like Meghan Markle and could be a book for that, right? And I didn't even know it, but there's someone in my audience who is like best friends of one of her best friends. And just because she read that email, she wrote back and she was like, do you need help kind of getting in touch with it? And so anyway, the point is, like, don't, like you just said, don't give up, but you have to put yourself out there too. You have to be doing these things. You have to be saying these things and getting out there. Opportunities exist. You just have to be putting yourself out there to find them.
Hey, I need someone to help me with a children's book that I'm editing.
We'll chat.
So,
all right.
Anyway,
we got 4 questions
digress
here that I want to make sure we get to.
Okay, sorry.
Is it? No, it's all right.
Oh, squirrel.
I know. Is it acceptable to provide links to successful blog and television clips in your what are we talking about? Proposals.
Absolutely. One of the things that we do now is we do media kits that are actually, and I'd be happy to show you all, they're flip books. They are actually interactive PDFs that are, I'm really excited about them. And we can embed video in those.
Oh, nice.
We put the live links to all of your media. All of that is really important. And then all you have to do is put a link, a hyperlink in the query so that they can go and look at all of that beautiful, media and publicity in one place. And it looks really professional. So the answer, of course, is yes, yes, yes. But again, utilize technology. And we're every single day we come up with new digital solutions for authors.
Awesome. Okay, so a query letter goes with the proposal, before the proposal. Where's that fit in there?
At least for us, a query letter goes first, because I mean, it's a little bit different now. You saw that picture of me with all those unsolicited submissions. So that's where the protocol comes of query letter, because then you're invited to the party. Nowadays, some people will attach a proposal, and in the old days, nobody was opening attachments, and there was good reason. I still recommend that you write a really great query letter and wait to be invited. And then the good news is they've then said, I have an interest in reading more, and then you can always follow up.
Mhm.
You're not in slush land. You're in, we've shown some interest in your book land.
Good to know. Okay. Leslie wants to know, and it is 2:00. So if you have 5 more minutes, we can go
I'm
through these.
free.
Okay.
I'm available. It's up to you.
What special considerations should be taken when writing a memoir competitively for a traditional publisher?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm not understanding it either,
I
Leslie.
can talk to you about memoir because that's a specialty of mine. And in fact, I do a lot of consulting and coaching people with their memoirs.
I
It's like
think
my
she's
favorite.
asking for, like, you talked mostly about the nonfiction book, like how would you craft the proposal for a memoir specifically?
It's really important. I think it's important that a memoir be completed.
Mhm.
If it's tied to something historic, timely, like the Manson book, if it's tied to something that is going to that's going to intrigue an agent or editor without the book needing to be completed, so that it's perceived as more of just a typical nonfiction, then it's packaged in the same way. But you need to make sure that you've structured it. Story is really important with memoir, and the writing is more important with memoir than straight prescriptive nonfiction. Not that it shouldn't be uh, excellent writing as best you can, but with memoir, eh, they've it's a lot of people don't touch memoir
Hmm.
because again, it's my favorite, but a lot
It's
of people
hard to
won't touch it
sell. It's hard to
because
sell.
they see it as hard to sell. So that's why the SEO is important.
Yeah.
When we take on branding for a memoir, we have found ways to really show a market, because we find what are the, every memoir needs to have a through line. And that's
Mhm.
another thing that people don't understand. You're the only people who deserve a memoir, an autobiography, which is like, I was born here and I grew up and this is what happened. The only people who deserve that would be Lincoln, or a political figure or a historic figure. You are writing a memoir, which is a snapshot in time with a specific theme associated with it. Either it's, overcoming great odds, maybe it's relationship oriented. There's something about it that has a bigger theme. And what I also tell people when they're writing a memoir is you are a persona in the story. And it's not you're a character in that book. So you need to be using the fictional technique that makes someone care about you as the character and those around you. So I think you could be very successful with memoir, but those are the types of things that you need to consider. And you need to have a through line, which is something that's going to hold together your story. Everything needs to relate back to that. For example, the book, I'm very proud of this book, so you can check out the reviews on Amazon. But this book, one of the through lines, and I don't think this will ruin the book for you. I hope you read it. Was the keeping of secrets.
Hmm.
That was so you need something that a generalized audience or your audience can relate to and see in themselves. So I hope that helps you. I encourage you to write your memoir. I also encourage you not to worry about other people and what they're going to think about it,
Mhm.
if that's an issue for you. Does that help?
I thought that was a great answer.
Oh, thank you.
Looking for clarification, and so did Leslie, on the table of contents for fiction novels. I'm glad Rebecca asked this because I had the same question. You wouldn't necessarily do a table of contents for a fiction book, right? Because with fiction books, you generally submit the query letter and the entire book.
No, you're
No?
going to do a query letter and a synopsis.
Okay.
And the synopsis really needs to be compelling. And you may also want to do, this is just kind of off the top of my head, I've published several novels through micropublishing media, and 2 or 3 of them were thrillers. I love psychological thrillers. And one was a murder mystery that related to, I'm gonna see if I have it right here, that related to the skating industry. This is not a magic bookshelf, by the way. There's really a physical, that is, but there's like a, looks like I'm taking things out of the sky. But I don't have, well, so this is a novel that we published. So you also want like your blurb, right? Almost like your blurb that you would have in the back of the book. I don't know if this is one of the better ones, but it all starts when you cross the line. Jeremy Barrett, a 33-year-old teacher, has a demanding wife, insufferable in-laws, and an unexpected baby on the way, and no real prospects. But Nikki Jordan, his beautiful 16-year-old student, makes him feel like a hero. She inspires him to write poetry, take chances, and dream of new possibilities until he awakens to his worst nightmare. Okay? In your query, and maybe a, yeah, I know, this is great. She's on her 3rd book now. This is Frida Hansberg. And we did another one on the skating industry, and we used language like find out the secrets behind the sequins. You know, there with fiction, if in your synopsis or in your query, give something intriguing like that, so that the agent or editor wants to read more.
Yeah.
And as far as what you submit, there are formats for fiction book proposals, and pick the that's cute. But I think the standard is like the first 50 pages. So our agency has never represented fiction. As a publisher, I do love it. But it has to be something that just, you know, touches me.
Yeah.
I hope that helped.
Yes. So no table of contents for fiction books.
Oh, that was the question. Oh my gosh. I guess my brain is starting to collapse. No, it should be the synopsis. If you wanted, it depends, like if there are definite sections and you want to annotate. Oh, Tony. Thank you, Tony. You're awesome. I miss you. And you're beautiful too. But I think you could, if your book has a definite structure, and you could do a table of contents, but only if it's really significant to the story and you want to do an annotation. It's a technique that some people use.
All right. Well, that is all the questions that we have. The last thing, Tony had asked if you needed to have a huge, if you're doing fiction books, if you needed to have a huge audience built up. I didn't ask it at the time because you don't focus as much.
Well,
on
no, I
books,
know about that. We have several branding clients that are novelists, like Frida. I really would defer the answer. There are agents who specialize in fiction, but I do know that if you have an established audience, especially for fantasy, which we're creating a whole fantasy line, it helps. It really does help. And plus, it's proving your audience.
Yeah.
And anything that's going to help you get past the competition is great. And I know that you'd much rather be writing, but these using online branding and platform building is such a great opportunity that I don't think any of you should pass it up. Now, I will leave you with one thing though about websites. Websites are invisible to the search engines unless you do digital marketing. And that means front and back optimization.
Yep.
And we are seeing results
Yep.
now with a few of our clients that I could not even believe. One of our books is now for certain keywords is #1.
That's awesome.
And we've been trying that for years. So leave no stone unturned, never give up. If you're a writer, you're going to write. So learn these business protocols, because until you reach a certain level, no one's going to do it for you. And we want you to succeed, because I love to read. I love books. I'm really a book nerd. So if there's any way that I can help any of you, please do let me know. And I'm so grateful to you, Alexa, for the work you're doing and that you've invited me to
Thank you. And we hope
give this
we'll
webinar.
have you back. We hope we'll have you back in the next conference. And hopefully now that we know each other sooner, you found out about us at the last minute. So it was a rush to get you in. But now that
my goodness, was it? And then
but
it was
we'll
like,
bring you on
woohoo!
earlier.
I know everything was rushed. And I bet you guys were a little worried whether I was going to remember, and I was going to, and are you surprised I had this whole slideshow? And
Oh, this was fantastic. I really appreciate it.
great.
We will, with the replay of the presentation, we will send out the links to all the things we talked about today. We will send out the email address for Deborah so you can reach out to her website, all the things. So, just pay attention, not pay attention. Yes, pay attention to your inbox for that to come. Pay attention. And this wig is making me wild today. It's giving me all kinds of sassiness. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for joining us today, Deborah. I appreciate it. That was a phenomenal presentation, and we've had so many questions on proposals and all of that. I know several people in our audience who are working hard on proposals, so I am glad that we now have a resource we can send them to for critique on proposals and for support on that. And one last thing, if you are interested in Book Launch in a Box, if you've been getting the emails, don't forget that program shuts down on Thursday. It's a whole month of, speaking of building the author platform and doing all of those things, like we dig in hard on knowing who your reader is, how to get in front of them, and the things to do to help with that process. So we hope we'll have some of you join us, and otherwise check out all of our upcoming events at womeninpublishingsummit.com/events. We will have Deborah back to talk about these other topics, and thank you all very much for being here.
Thanks.
Have a great one.
You too.